So apparently it's now a flex to not be a feminist. Like, guys, what is going on? Hi guys, welcome back to Clare's Kingdom, where we talk facts, walk fierce, and remind the world that well-behaved women rarely make history.
You wake up, house up, run around in it, flossing on it. This diamond, my diamond, this rock, my rock. I woke up like this. I woke up like this.
Hi guys, so this video is so overdue. Like, when I tell you, it's just been in my archives. But yes, let's talk about it. The whole idea of feminism now becoming quote unquote out of style. Now, I'm going to define the word feminism before we get into the video, because I know, especially online, people have their own definitions and their own connotations that they try to push at a mass scale. At a mass scale, but I'm a very by the books kind of person, of course, mixed with intuition, spiritual law, all that stuff. But yeah, the word feminism is defined by the belief in social, economic, and political equality for all genders, with a focus on achieving equal rights and opportunities for women and girls. So from that definition alone, why wouldn't it not be a flex to want to advocate for women and girls who are portrayed as less than or not as worthy as the other gender, or to men? And I've always said, like, I don't know if this video is out yet, but in a video where I talk about womanhood being great again, feminism, despite what is being preached online, is not about hating men. It's not about making men pay. And don't get me wrong, I know under patriarchy, under misogyny and all these things, men definitely have a part to play. But feminism inherently is not about hating men or trying to degrade men. Feminism is about creating equal rights for women. It's about restoring the dignity of women. It's about restoring the flawed perception that women are somehow less than or less capable, less smart. Like, that itself is not a logical argument. Women are literally the creators, the birth givers, the portals of life. Without women, there'd be no patriarchy, no world, nothing would exist without women. So that in itself is a very flawed argument. And let's not even get into the whole what it takes to actually carry a child and give birth. And even if you're someone that is unable to do those things, or even if you don't reproduce, or whatever preferences you may have, the point is, women aren't just the backboners of society. Women literally construct society. Even the mere potential of creating a bloodline, even the act of just being a woman, you're a person, your existence matters. Yeah, let's get back to the focus of the video. The whole rhetoric that feminism is now seen as some sort of trend that is now fading away, or, you see a lot of people trying to go back to the quote unquote old ways, and how feminists are being painted as these radical, irrational, unintelligent man haters, man bashers, when that couldn't be further for the truth. At least from my perspective, at least from what I've understood from the topic. As someone who studied sociology, I was definitely seen as a quote unquote radical feminist by simply holding feminist values and just simply hating the notion that somehow women are less than. And honestly, I've done so much research and so much reading into these kind of topics, and it honestly boggles my mind. And sometimes I wonder, like, I've had conversations with people where I've genuinely asked, like, how did the world become like this? Like, at what point in history did we decide? Of course, some people may reference the Adam and Eve story, which I definitely have a food for thought for that story. But how did we get to a point where it was just decided on a global scale that women are less? Women shouldn't speak, women are not smart, women are too emotional, when in fact the opposite gender, or men, couldn't be less emotional. When you look at the problems in the world, when you look at crime rates, when you look at jail capacity, who is it that is filling up these places? Who is it that is fueling these issues of the world? And if they're not drawn by emotions like sadness, frustration, lack of control, I don't know what could be more emotional than that, but I digress. So this whole idea that equality is just something people are just talking about, that it's just to hell, like, people really have the attitude that it's to hell with equality, and I definitely do not stand for that. And I think it's very important to understand that there are different layers of feminism. Like I said, I did study sociology, and I did find that there were different types of feminists. We have the radical feminists, we have the liberal feminists, we have the black feminists, we have different types of feminists out there, and different stories, different notions. But I think the collective underlying general idea of feminism is just the idea that women and girls are equal to boys and men. It's insane that as a society, we've come to a point where advocating for women is now equivalent to hating men. And if you don't believe me, you can go online, go on TikTok, go on social media, just look at what the discussions that are being had. And despite popular belief, the point of feminism is to give women a choice, to give women the choice, the decision to do whatever they will, and just to let them live a life that isn't limited or shrunk down because of their gender. And there's this one quote or phrase I heard which has really stuck to me. And it was like, when you hear the whole argument about men and women being equal, people try to compare it to, oh, that means equal rights, equal fights, equal rights. So, 50-50 on dates. It's not about that. When you think about the idea that a woman's rights depends on what part of the world she's in, then you really understand how vital the topic and the movement of feminism actually is. A man can go to anywhere in the world. And of course, I'm not talking about, religious or cultural differences or those kind of things. That's a whole nother layer topic. But simply coming from a place of gender or your gender identity, being a woman, literally your rights depend on what part of the world you're in. And that is very scary to me. And that is very wow. So it really boggles me when I see women saying that, oh, feminism is not a flex, or they try to say that equality doesn't matter, or no. Because even to be here today, being that women's rights were almost or only established about 50 years ago is wild. And even seeing how the women before us or before me had to live, and even going back to hundreds of years ago, when you look into history and see how women were drowned because they were too intelligent, that they were accused of being witches if they even had a backbone, if them not being a damsel in distress was this big crime by fire, crime by whatever, insane. But yeah, in my own life, I've literally come across relatives, friends, people talking about how every woman's inherent need or desire is to be led by a man, and that women can't be leaders. Or that, for instance, when I've said I'm going to be a leader and I've said that I have the capacity to lead, right? And not even saying it, my life is a testimony to that. And you'd hear people say things like, well, that's never going to happen. Women aren't supposed to lead. And I've literally been, unfortunately, prevalent to conversations of people saying things like, feminism is a joke, people laughing at the idea of feminism, that, when people, and let me tell you something, especially back in the day when I was in those sociology classes, I was definitely that one person when the topic of feminism came up, everybody was groaning because they knew that I was just about to talk some sense. They knew I was about to talk some real sense. And that's why even me navigating this, wanting to be powerful, working towards becoming my higher self, becoming her ultimately, it's definitely been a painful, eye-opening experience, especially when you see how much resistance the world has to powerful women. And it's not even just the world, the people closest to you, even culturally speaking, can have such patriarchal and such misogynistic ideas of what a woman should or shouldn't be. And I've just come to realize that all these things that make you different, that inclination you have to want to be powerful, to want to be great, to build a life for yourself, is exactly what is going to make you great, and is exactly, like I always say, is going to make you make history. And this is the difference between the whole TikTok or internet feminism versus what feminism actually is. And I think the biggest part of the problem is that people don't really agree on what feminism actually is. And there's just so many misconceptions, and some people hear feminism as soon as, guys, when I tell you, go to any man, as soon as you drop the word feminism, it's just crickets, or it's instant violation, it's instant mocking, it's instant eye roll. And even when you think about the term feminism, like I said, go to anyone, your first instinct is, oh, men are trash, we hate men are cowards, men are this, I hate men, it's women versus men. Feminism isn't about women versus men. Like I said, it's about making womanhood great again. And that is definitely the version that exists online. But sometimes we need to actually go outside and touch grass and pick up the history books. One Google search can tell you a lot about the whole act of feminism and how the women before us paved so many ways and so many paths for us to even be here, to have the freedom. We need to even be here and to have this discussion on YouTube. And like I said, real feminism, at least for me, is not about hating men. It's about questioning systems, questioning how things became the way they were, questioning why or how we got to a place where a group of men especially older white men, somehow ended up in a room somewhere deciding the bodily rights of women, deciding whether women are able to make decisions about their bodies, deciding whether women were worthy to enter certain spaces. And don't get me wrong, I've always said that even women reinforce patriarchy and reinforce misogyny. So it's not, like I said, the burden doesn't just fall to men, because if you haven't already watched my video about women are part of the patriarchy is definitely embedded, and it definitely all stems back to socialization and how we're raised culturally, socially, even the result of globalization, the way these norms are just passed around the world and normalized throughout the world. It's definitely something that needs to be debunked. But feminism, or just the simple act of being a feminist, is about asking why men are given power but not held to the same accountability. There was a recent case where a judge allowed 3 teenage boys, they were literally let off a grape charge. And I use the word grape because, YouTube violations. They were literally let off grape charge because they were on good behavior. From the time between the trial and the time between sentencing, they were on good behavior. So the judge commended them for that, and they were let off. And these 2 teenage women, were literally devastated. They were not accounted for. And the reason why the judge said he let them go was because he didn't want to ruin their lives. I'm definitely paraphrasing, but long story short, he said that they were young, they didn't know what they were doing. He doesn't want to ruin their lives. And I'm sure we've seen this principle being applied to even grown men when it comes to crimes, SA charges, even corrupt governments, cheating scandals, all these things. Men are always given leeway, they're always given room, they're always excused of all accountability. You'll see leaders, I've seen leaders in the church, I've seen leaders even in public and government do the most insane things, have an affair, inappropriate relations with minors, and sometimes they may even just get a slap on the wrist and they get put back in their position, or they're given the easy way out of still being paid, still being accommodated without being in the public eye. It's just a lot of injustice, all boiling back down because they are a man. And this is why the whole topic of feminism is important, because it's not about hating men. It's about questioning why and how men are supposedly at the top of the hierarchy, and yet when it comes to things like accountability, responsibility, these things are always shaky, excused. And asking the question about, or just even thinking about why women are expected to always adjust to the behavior of a man, always accommodate, always understand, always be pleasing, always endure, be tolerable, tolerate. Or why do certain behaviors get excused in men but criticized in women? Going back to my point about being emotional, how women are painted out to be emotional because they have, menstrual cycles, hormones. Men have hormones. I'm sure at some point we've all been prevalent or have seen how men can just lose their temper, punching walls, going on yelling sprees, making irrational decisions, having affairs, assaulting people, or sexually assaulting people. Sorry, I don't want to get banned. Sexually assaulting people, literally in broad daylight, facts, screenshots. And when I go back to talking about that case I just brought up, there was literally a video proving the assault happened, but somehow they still get let off, they still get a smack on the wrist, they still get respected. Even people like the P. Diddy's of the world, I don't really want to name drop, but they will have their moment of minimal scrutiny, and then they're back to being, they're cool. People are joking about it. People are making a light heart about it. Like, everything is lighthearted, everything's calm. But yeah, I guess that's the power of patriarchy. But going back to the main point, this is why feminism, it's not just some cute aesthetic. It's not just, I hate men. It's not just, woman power to women, which of course can definitely tie into it. But feminism is about bringing back equilibrium, restoring back equilibrium when it comes to the genders. And also, it's important for us to even be aware of our own tendencies to reinforce patriarchy or misogyny. Because like I said, it can happen so easily through the media, propaganda, culture, family, life, just social norms. And you don't realize that little things we do are actually reinforcing patriarchy. And the thing about these ideas is that they didn't appear overnight, and they've been brewing for centuries. Even though we've come a long way, it's definitely still something that needs to be debunked. And I'm not saying that we're going to, solve all this overnight, but the idea of being a feminist is just always pushing, advocating, and wanting and hoping for better, for more, for change. Imagine if the women of the past, or even if you're a black person or black woman, Imagine the black women, black people of the past didn't stand up and say, this isn't right, this isn't just. We'd still be in the same place. We'd still be sitting there. Imagine if they said, you know what, this is the norm, this is normal, this is just how it is. Then what kind of life would we be living today? And I'll go back to say, is it a flex to not be a feminist? Is it really a flex to not be a feminist? Like, I don't think that's something you should be flexing. And I'm not saying you have to be a feminist, but don't push the agenda that being a feminist is some sort of evil thing. In fact, you can even educate people of what being a feminist actually is. And I think we have to even think about the bigger picture of why the idea of feminism is being rejected at this specific time. Because there was a time where all women could even think about or fight for was the idea of feminism. That's why we have the first wave, second waves, all these waves of feminism. And my hope is that we bring that one final wave that would just clear everything, bring it back, equilibrium style. But yeah, all in due timing. And yeah, lastly, I'll leave you guys with this. For the people that reject feminism as an idea or construct or movement, are you rejecting equality? Just know that potentially when you say feminism is not a flex, you may be rejecting equality, accountability, and the right to question systems that directly affect you. And even if you don't personally care about feminism, even if you're a man listening to this, your sisters, your mothers, your aunts, even your daughters are definitely affected by this every day. And because the idea of feminism is widely pushed as angry women who hate men or women against men, a lot of people do tend to reject it. Feminism is about having awareness, accountability, and understanding how society actually works and wanting to see women and girls win. Women and girls winning does not mean men and boys are losing. There's space for everybody. Of course, in this video, we're talking about women, and rejecting feminism, just a PSA, rejecting feminism does not make you above it. Just because you decide to ignore the systems of power in the world does not make you exempt. Like, even the whole idea of power, generally speaking, people think if they ignore power, ignore corruption, ignore power plays, ignore money situations, you think that it doesn't affect you. It's going to affect you indirectly or directly. And rejecting feminism, in my view anyway, just makes me believe that you misunderstand the concept of it, because unless you genuinely just love or want to be oppressed or don't want to be equal, then that's just another story or conversation in itself. But yeah, feminism isn't about women above men. It's about asking why the system was never balanced to begin with. And yeah, this is definitely a food for thought. And when I tell you, I can talk about this topic for hours and hours and hours, but I'm gonna leave it here. Make sure you guys comment down your thoughts below. But make sure to keep it respectful. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
I woke up like this. We flawless. Ladies, tell them I woke up like this.